السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. ربنا زدنا علما ربنا زدنا علما ربنا زدنا علما. Inshallah, we will continue from the last class. We had done characteristics or sifat with opposites, and what we are going to do now is sifats without opposites. سبع صفات لا أضداد لها. So these are seven characteristics which have no opposites to it. These are the seven. Learn their names so that you can remember. And all these names for the sifat, try to learn the Arabic terms for it, not the English ones. English, yes, for the meaning, but do learn the Arabic terms. One is Safir. It's like a whistling sound. Inshallah, we will see details and the alphabets that have this. Then Al-Lin, which is softness. Al-Inhiraf, drifting. At-Takrar, repetition. At-Tafashi, spreading around. Al-Istitala, lengthening. Al-Ghunna, nasalization. And in some other books, some scholars, and Imam Ibn al-Jazari is one of these scholars, they have mentioned two more characteristics in opposites, which is ismat and dhalaqa, that is the forbidden and the fluent. These are part of phonology, so they have no application to tajweed of the letters, nor in the pronunciation. That's why they have not been mentioned in this book. So we finished these. Let me go to the page where the description for sifat without opposite starts, which is here. So الصفات التي لا ضد لها الصفير, which is whistling. تعريفة في اللغة, meaning the linguistic definition just by the name of the word, it means هو حده الصوت, meaning it is sharpness of sound. الصفير, sharpness of sound. Whereas the applied definition, what we want to know in tajweed is حدة في صوت الحرف تنشأ عن مروره في مجرى ضيق, meaning there is a sharpness in the sound of the letter, a sharpness, and how it is coming, it is produced from it transversing through a tight passage. Because of the tight passage, from there the sound is coming. Because of that, there is a sharpness in the sound. This characteristic is there on three letters. This sifat you will find in three letters, the sifat of safir, which is a sad, a zai, and a sin. Now, if you remember the makhraj from volume 1, you know that all these three have the same makhraj. Sad, zai, and sin. So since they have the same makhraj, all of them have a tight passage and there is a sharpness in the sound. It's like S. You have that is called safir. S, as, all the sharpness. Then softness, which is lean. The linguistic definition, lean means easiness, sahula, easiness. Whereas here, what definition we want to know for lean is خروج الحرف من مخرجه بسهولة من غير كلفة على اللسان, meaning the letter is being emitted from its articulation point with ease, no effort from the tongue. There is no effort from the tongue. There are two here. It's not actually alphabets, but there are two sounds in lean, which is al-waw wal-ya al-liniyatani, meaning al-waw lean and ya lean, which is al-waw wal-ya as-sakinatani al-maftuha ma qablahuma. If there is a waw sakina or a ya sakina and before it you have a maftuha, maftuha means there is a fatha, an alphabet with a fatha before it. Like for example, Quraish, in that you have ra, fatha, ya, sukun. So you have ya sukun preceded by fatha. Ya sukun preceded by fatha, like min khawf. So it's ya sukun, waw sukun here preceded by fatha. Khaw, aw. So aw. Then you have inhiraf, which is drifting. الميل, the linguistic definition, meaning drifting, moving. So ميل الصوت الحرفي لعدم كمال جريانه بسبب اعتراض اللسان طريقه, meaning you drifting of the sound of the letter due to incomplete running, which is caused by the tongue turning from its part. So the tongue is turning from its part, so there is incomplete running, and because of this the sound is also drifting. This is there in two alphabets, which is al-lam wa ra. L, R. The difference between the drifting of these two letters, الفرق بين الانحراف في اللام والراء. There is a difference between both of them when you say L and when you say R. What is the difference? Now let us look at that. يكون انحراف صوت اللام إلى جانبي طرف اللسان لاعتراض الطرف طريق اللام، أما الراء فبالعكس ينحرف الصوت بها من جانبي طرف اللسان إلى وسطه. The deviation of the sound of the lam is to the sides of the tip. When you say L, that deviation comes to the sides of the tip. Why? Because what happens is tip is blocking the root of lam. When you say L, the tip is blocking the root of lam. So this deviation is going to the side of the tip. Whereas deviation of the sound of the letter ra is from the sides of the tongue into the middle of the tongue. Where was it for lam? For lam, the tip of the tongue is blocking. When you say L, your tip is touching. So it's blocking the root of saying lam. So the sound is deviating to the side of the tip. Whereas for ra, from the side, it is coming and deviating into the middle. R, R. You're touching the sides. When you're saying R, you're touching the sides. You're not, if you'll see, there'll be a slight gap in the very fine tip of the tongue. There'll be a very slight gap. I have a image from the book from where I was sharing some images in the group. Inshallah, I will post the image for lamb and raw as well, so you will exactly know the difference also then. The tip of the tongue closes off the articulation point of lamb, and then the sound will deviate towards the side, whereas the raw sticks at the front of the tip to the articulation point, and the sound needs to escape so that there will not be takrar. Takrar is one of the characteristics which is coming now. A small space at the very tip of the tongue is made so that the sound can escape out of the mouth. So what happens in raw? The front of the tip you are sticking to the makhraj, and this sound needs to escape. Why? Because if it doesn't escape, you will have a takrar. So to avoid getting that takrar, you need that sound to escape from there. So very small space will be left at the tip so that that sound can escape from there. So the excess trilling of raw is avoided because of that. This is the reason both of these letters have the characteristic of tawassut instead of rokhaweh. Rokhaweh sound is keeping on flowing, whereas these have half flowing and half stopping. Because of this, that is why it is stopping, because all the other letters, if you see, except for the shid, all the other letters are rokhaweh. So it's majority of the letters in rokhaweh. The next is the one which we just now read, takrar. Takrar linguistically means repetition of something once or more. إعادة الشيء مرة أو أكثر. ارتعاد طرف اللسان عند النطق بالراء ارتعادا خفيا نتيجة ضيق مخرجها، وليحذر القارئ من المبالغة في التقرير المودي إلى ظهور أكثر من راء. What is the applied definition? What we need to know, takrar. Takrar is the light trilling of the tongue, this one, when pronouncing the raw. But this one, what you're doing, this is excess. What you have for raw is just light trilling. So the light trilling of raw, that is what is called takrar. When you pronounce the raw, due to its tight articulation point, as we just now saw, its articulation point is very tight, and one small tiny space you're going to leave open. The reciter should be careful not to exaggerate the repetition leading to the occurrence of more than one of the letter raw. When you say r, This is like 4 or 5 raws I just now said. So you should not have that. There should be just light trilling. You should keep a small gap so that the sound escapes. There is only one letter here. حرفه means its letter is حرف واحد وهو را. There's only one letter and that is ra. Then the next صفات تفشي. تفشي mean انتشار, meaning spreading around. هو الانتشار صوت الشين ابتداء من مخرجه حتى يصطدم بالصفحة الداخلية للأسنان العليا, meaning the spreading of the letter sheen starting from its articulation point. So it's spreading from where the articulation point of sheen is, starting from there until it collides with the inner plates of the top teeth. From where do you say sheen? What was the makhraj of sheen? Ash. Ash is the middle of the middle of the tongue touching the roof of the mouth. Ash. But again, there is some gap here. It's not completely touching. So starting from there and until from there it reaches to the top teeth, the inner place of the top teeth. Ash. It comes till there. So that's spreading around in that area. Ash. Just say ash and you'll feel that it spreads. That sound spreads around inside from that middle part of your tongue until the teeth. That is what is called tafashi. How will you remember these letters? Tafashi. See, the alphabet is also already there inside she. Then takrar, repetition. You know, arrow. You can remember that. It's again there. Takrar. There is 2 raws here, so you will know it's a raw. Then inhiraf is drifting. That's just 2 letters, lam and ra. Inshallah, slowly you will remember all these. Lean, you will remember I and aw is lean. So that's ya or waw sukun. Before that, you have a fatha. Safir is like a whistling sound. So again, the letters are easy here to remember. S, S, and Az. Sad, Sin, and Zai. So the next one, inshallah, is lengthening, which is istitala. The linguistic definition, lengthening. Al-imtidad, imtidad, mad. You remember mad? This word is from mad, to lengthen. هي الاندفاع اللساني إلى الأمام بعد اصطدامه في المخرج نتيجة لضغط الصوت عليه حتى يلامس رأس اللسان أصول الثنيتين العليين. Meaning you have pushing of the tongue forward, okay, pushing of the tongue forward after it collides at its articulation point. Now here, remember one thing, there is only one letter here again, it's dad. How do you remember, how do you say dad? Remember the makhraj. How do you say dad? From the sides of the tongue, the back part of the sides, and touching the molars above it. So that tongue, what you're doing, you're pushing the tongue forward after it collides at its articulation point. When you're saying al, after that you have to push it forward, otherwise the sound, see, it's not coming properly. So why is this? This is because of the influence of the compression of sound on it. That is the tongue, on that there is compression of sound until the tip of the tongue lightly touches the gum line. The tip of the tongue, how much forward you will push? Until the tongue will lightly touch the gum line of the 2 top front incisors. When you say L or when you say ad, near there. And it will not touch because like ad, it touches fully. That's why you get a qalqala, because you have to leave from there to get the sound of dal. But here in dad, you should not get that qalqala sound. You should just lightly touch the gum line. It's not going to like push it complete. And this pushing forward is mechanical, you know. If you just properly say the dad makhraj from its makhraj, you will automatically, your tongue will push forward slightly, because it's not so easy just to keep the tongue there and say it. While touching, it will move forward slightly. After you touch the makhraj point, it will move forward slightly. So the sound should not travel forward with this involuntary movement when you're doing this. And this, you're not going to do it by your force. It's going to happen naturally. But you should take care that when you're doing this, that sound is not traveling forward. If it goes forward, if the sound goes forward with it, then the sound of dad would end up like dal, which is incorrect. As I said, if you move it too much forward, it will become eld. See, that kalkala sound should not come. Eld, the. So it should be, you should just hold the sound there. L, L, like that. The lengthened sound of dod is that of its characteristic of rakhawa. So the lengthened sound is rakhawa, and it should be as long as rakhawa in any other letter that has rakhawa, as we saw in rakhawa as well. All the letters, the lengthening is equal. So whenever you are doing a sukoon on dod, don't lengthen it too much also. Like how you're lengthening for the other letters, it should be that much only. How much you say, for example, for seen, S. That same way, al, it should have the same length. So istitala, it's dod. Then you have ghunna, nasalization. صوت غن يخرج من الخيشوم, which is a nasal sound that is emitted from the nose. Now, this is a required or intrinsic characteristic of noon and meme. You cannot separate this nasalization characteristic from noon and meme. It's always there with it. Like the sound that comes from the nose. When you close your nose and say an or me, you cannot say am. There's something that is getting blocked there inside the nose, telling, it's pushing out and let me go out, let me go out. So that is what is gunna. This is intrinsic or required characteristic of noon and meme, and it does not separate from these two letters. Now, note about, we saw why lam and ra weren't tawassut in the middle. So let us also see why noon and meme and the reason for them in being the mutawassut group. If we dissect the makhraj and characteristic of the gunna in noon and meme into separate entities, then we can understand why they are in the mutawassat group. When you close off the nostrils, they can eliminate the gunna. When I say close my nose and say the gunna sound is gone. But when this is done and we try to say the noon on meme, we notice that there is imprisonment of the running of the sound, which is shidda. You remember what is shidda? Shidda, tawassut, rakhawa. Hams and Jahar was pertaining to the air flowing or air getting imprisoned. But the next one, which is Shidda, Rakhawa, and Tawassut, this is about the sound. So when you do this, when you're closing your nostrils and trying to say noon or meme, you can notice that the running of the sound is also imprisoned. The Shidda is imprisoned. On the other hand, if we emit a gunna without using any makhraj of a letter, when you say a gunna, without using any makhraj of a letter, it is noticed you have a running of the sound, rakhawa. So when you put them together, you end up with mutawassut. Now, these characteristics are documented in the poem by Imam Ibn al-Jazari. His poem's name is long. It's known as Manzumatu. Manzumatu means a poem. Al-Muqaddimatu fima yajibu ala qari al-Qur'ani ay ya'lamah. Meaning, it's a muqaddimah in what a reciter of the Quran must know or he should learn for reciting. This poem is commonly, because it's a big name, it is also known as Al-Jazariyah. He laid out the characteristics and their letters to make their memorization easier. So to remember these characteristics and sifat and how to remember the letters, everything, he has made a poem, and all the code words that you saw on top, like fahathahu, shaqsun, sakat, ajid, qatin, bakat, all these are from this poem. So let's try to read this. Babu sifatil hurufi. You don't need to memorize this as of now, but those who are interested in memorizing the poem, the whole poem of Ibn al-Jazariya, can be memorized. Inshallah, you can do that. And this is the end here. So let us complete this, inshallah. صفاتها جحر ورخو مستفل منفتح مصمتة وضد قل محموسها فحثه شخص سكت شديدها لفظ أجد قت بكت بين رقو والشديد لين عمر وسبع علو خص ضغط قذ حصر وصاد ضاد طاء ضاء مطبقة وفر من لب الحروف مذلقة. This is for ذلقية. There is a characteristic ذلقية. The alphabets for that is far min lub. Far min and lub. These far min lub. صفيرها صاد وزاي سين قلقلة قطب جد واللين واو وياء سكنا وانفتح قبلهما والانحراف صحها في اللام والراء وبتكرير جعل ولتفشي الشين ضادا استطل. So what is the meaning is mentioned here. You can go through that if you're interested. It just mentions that these are the sifat, these are the alphabets of those sifat. That's it. That is what is mentioned. So this is just the translation of the poem. Inshallah, I will give you that as homework to read because it's just what we have just covered. So it'll be a good revision for you. Now, according to the strengths and weakness, the characteristics can be divided. So تقسيم الصفات من حيث القوة والضعف. The preceding characteristics which we just saw can be divided into three groups. الصفات القوية, which is the strong ones. The strong are jahr. Jahr is the most strong because it's pertaining to the sound. Sorry, it's pertaining to the air getting blocked. Hamsun wal jahrun. So you have in hams and jar, which is the strong one, because hams is, you remember, it was weakness of the makhraj, so the air flows out. Jahr is the opposite. So jahr is strong out of that. Okay, so jahrun is strong. And if you see the in the weak, you will have its opposite. If you have jahrun here, then of course you will have hamsun here. Okay, then shidda. Shidda is why? Because the makhraj is strong, the sound is getting imprisoned. So that's shidda. Whereas rakhawa is weak. So it's between. Middle characteristic is tawassut or bayyina. It's in between. Sifat mutawassut. Then you have in isti'la and istifal. Isti'la is the heavy letters, they're strong. And istifal are the weak characteristics. Then you have itbaq and idlaq. Sorry. Itbaq and infitah. Itbaq is more strong. It's the strongest of out of all those isti'ala also. So this is itbaq is strong, and infitah are the weak ones. Then you have the other characteristics which are without opposites. All of them are strong. Safir, qalqala, inhiraf, takrir, tafashi, istitala, ghunna. There is one weak which is lean because it's quite soft. Ay, aw. So that is the weak characteristic. From these categories, we can divide the letters into similar classifications. Like the letters which are strong, huruf qawwiyya, will be all those who have strong characteristics. Like the example is ta. Ta, if you see all the sifat of ta, it's a strong letter. Whereas weak huruf da'ifa are those all that have weak characteristics in it. One example is the ha. And the middle letters mutawassut, they have a mixture of strong and weak, like for example lam. Okay. Now here there's a note on qalqala. Qalqala is considered by many to be a presented characteristic and not intrinsic. Like also is the opinion of Sheikh Dr. Ayman Suaid, and that is why qalqala was not explained here, whereas it was covered in volume 1 in detail, if you remember the last chapter that was. And inshallah, here we end this chapter. The next chapter will be about valorization and attenuation, which is known as tafkhim and tarqiq. التفخيم والترقيق here. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.